Hi everyone, today I'm going to do a short tutorial on the independent sliding damper system that we have seen racers competing in the 2019 Japan Cup races use. This system is useful for all tracks because unlike a standard sliding damper that shifts the entire roller stay, like this one right here, that the entire thing moves on this as one piece. Instead of that system, what the independent sliding damper does is that each side moves on its own, such as this one right here, but that's that side and that side. It moves on its own without impacting the other side. You can even set one side to rigid while allowing the other side to dampen, which is really helpful for some tracks. As far as making sliding dampers, it's really best to use a micro mill, as there's quite a bit of fine detail work that you need to do that is difficult with rotary and hand tools. Before I get started, we're going to go through the parts that you will need to make this. So you will need 2 packs of carbon popsicles right here. Doesn't matter if they are the Japan Cup ones or the regular white labeled ones. You just need 2 packs of those. You also need a pack of damper springs, such as these right here. They come in a little pack of 4 silver hard ones and 4 soft black ones. You also need a package of 5mm copper tubes and a 2mm hollow propeller shaft. I don't have one in the package, but here it is. Here it is right here. So this one obviously I've already cut because I've been using it to make this system. But you'll need that 2mm hollow propeller shaft. This is not the smaller 1.4mm AR style. It's the thicker 2mm kind of FMA style. If this is your first time making sliding dampers, you'll also likely need some kind of pattern to make some rectangles on the popsicle itself. So you can either use something like this right here, which is the kind of standard aluminum one that comes in the standard sliding damper kit from Tamiya, or you can use one of the carbon pieces as well. You're going to use this triangle or rectangle here, or this rectangle right here. Now I'm going to take apart the system, and we'll look at each individual piece as well as assembling it. So we're going to take this apart. So I have now disassembled the front end of my car, and here are all the individual pieces of the sliding damper system. I'm not going to go through every single cut I made and fine adjustment, but we'll cover the basics of what I did and why. The first thing I did was when I made this, I outlined my work first. I drew out what exactly I was going to do, and then I completed one popsicle at a time and left the popsicle the full length and totally intact until I actually needed to do the last step of cutting it into the correct size. That way I made sure everything was exactly correct. Starting with this top cover, this little top cover right here, you can see, just like this, 2019 Japan Cup. You can see the gold looking on it, and the back side is probably a little easier to look at because it's all a solid black color. So starting with this piece, what I've done is we can see that there are these two rectangles here. These 2 rectangles are the place where the damper springs will be inserted into, as well as a slotted section right across the center here. To make the rectangles, use your little pattern, and you're going to line it up onto your piece of carbon, and you will then with a fine marker or fine pen, you'll mark out what you need to do, what you need to cut, and then you will cut it on your micro mill. Once completed, the rectangles should hold a spring, one of the damper springs, not too tight, not too loose, but it should just kind of hold it right in there. So that's the rectangles. You're gonna follow the pattern, and then you're gonna trim that piece, cut the piece of carbon into a rectangle shape that will hold that damper spring. Now that you've made your rectangles on one popsicle, this is now your pattern for other for kind of future cutting for this set, because they really should be kind of matched sets. If you're off a little bit on one, you can adjust if they're all the same. But if you're trying to mix and match different parts, sometimes it works really weird. So this is your pattern for the other two pieces. The slot section is simply a slot connecting these two middle holes. We can see on, I'll use this one here so you can see these two middle holes right here. There's one here and one here. I just used the mill and used a 1.5 millimeter end mill and just cut straight across. That's all I did. I used a 1.5 millimeter and then slowly widened it so that everything fits snugly. If I'd done 2 millimeter and I was off a little bit, I would have had to start with a brand new piece. But if I started a little bit smaller and enlarged it to fit, you get better fit and you can address small mistakes that you may make. So I slowly widened it until the propeller shaft would fit inside of it. And then what I did was once this fit inside, I took out off the mill and took a file and just filed this down so it's nice and smooth. So it's nice and smooth straight across here. So you don't really move that far. You only move about that far on each side. So I just made sure it was nice and smooth, and it worked well. The final bit of work was shortening the cover. We shortened the cover from this piece right here. We can see all the Tamiya labeling on it. We shortened it from this wide to this shorter section, right there. Just cut there and cut there. This I did at the very end. After I had done all the rectangles and this H cut on the other bar, I finally shortened everything. Once I had everything completed and everything looked good. Now let's look at the sliding part of the system. It uses two popsicles. One has an H cut in it. We can see here on this one there is an H cut on here, right on the bottom screen maybe. And then the other one has just the regular standard rectangle that we did on the top plate. So how you make this is you take your top plate right here that you've already created, take it and screw it onto the H bar using these two holes here, and then you're going to use that as your pattern to mill out the rectangle and the H bar. This way everything matches up and it will work really well. Now you need to create the sliding part of the damper. The part of the damper right here that has this little sliding bit in it. You can kind of see there. Yeah, right there. You can see the H and you can see the sliding bit right there. To do this, you're going to take a popsicle and another popsicle. You can take two popsicles, and if you see this 13 and 19 millimeter hole right here, that distance that between those two is just about right, just about what you want. So take one popsicle and then find this 19 millimeter hole and connect it with a screw and a nut through that hole. On the other side, put a screw and a nut through these holes here. That way the whole thing stays nice and secure. Drill through the 13 millimeter hole with a 2 millimeter drill bit, and then reverse it and do the same thing on the other side. That'll give you a popsicle that has a hole here and another hole here, a hole here, and another hole here. Then at this point, I like to take my two popsicles I'm working on for the sliding part and connect them. So I will take them, and since I'm working here, I don't want to connect the two popsicles there, but I will use like these 13 and 19s on each side, or maybe even one in the middle here, to keep everything nice and square, so that when I'm making this sliding section, it stays consistent and I don't have to do a lot of work after the fact. So now you're going to take each of those two holes you've now drilled, your hole right here, as well as your hole right next to it, and drill those out with a 3 millimeter drill bit. There's going to be some extra material in the center. I like to take a file and file it, use the file just to file it out, clean it up, and then make sure that one of your copper tubes, here, make sure that the copper tube fits in there nicely and it slides very easily. So it's back and forth across. So I can barely hold this one because it slides so well. We'll see here. You know, you just want it to slide. Just want it to be able to slide back and forth a little bit, just like that, back and forth. And so once that's good on both sides, you are almost done with cutting the popsicles. Your next step is to take the popsicle, and we can see if we line this up here with one of the same style. If we line up all the holes, what I did was I just cut it in the middle, and then trim the edges so there's this gap in the middle. That's going to allow the sliding damper to slide inwards and have space to move independently. So each side has that space to move. It's very unlikely you're going to have both pushed in at the same time, but if that happens, they both do have some space to move. And that's kind of it for your milling. The next step is going to be to prepare a couple pieces of hardware for it, and we're going to jump into that in just a moment. Now we need to make the pins that will hold everything together. They look just like this right here. A little difficult to see, but there they are. These pins are from the 2mm propeller shaft, the 2mm hollow propeller shaft. You're just going to cut it with a Dremel. Just cut it off, and then I like to clean up the edges a little bit so it's nice and has smooth edges on it. But that's about it. Then take I've already assembled this one. I like to work with it assembled right now because it's just easier to get everything to fit right and seated on the right. So you're gonna slide one in just like this right here, and then you're gonna take a little bit of glue. This is some very thin. It's called super thin glue, and so you're going to use a little bit of the super thin glue, and it will run in and fill in between the pin and the carbon itself. So you're just going to take this and put a little drop here. Mine's not too super thin. I think it's getting a little old. Anyways, you're gonna let it set up in there, and dry, and then that's going to be one side. And while that's drying, while that's setting up, we're going to assemble the other side, and I'll show you how this works. So you're going to take your two pieces here. I like to connect it to build it so that the labeling is on the inside, so that you have a nice smooth surface on each side for it to slide. You can see a little bit of marker here. That's just from me when I milled it to better see what I'm doing. But you're going to take and you're going to assemble this just like this with a lock nut or a regular nut on here. Oh, I'm missing something. So you have the regular nut there. Now it's all connected, and you're going to take this and take the other pin, slide it in, make sure it's nice and flat with that. Normally I'll use a flat surface and just make sure it's sitting flat. Again, one more drop on this side of this one here. And let that dry. While those are drying, normally it's really pretty quick, but you're going while that's happening, you're going to take these 5mm brass spacers that we have and cut two of them down to 3 millimeters each. And I will be right back once this glue is dry. It looks like it's still a little wet, so I'll be right back in a few minutes. Okay, now we are ready to assemble. We see that we have the pins here set very nicely into the sliding piece. And after it was dry, the glue was dried, I had sanded this just a very little bit to make sure it's nice and smooth. I've inserted the springs, and now it's time to assemble. So take your bottom plate that you're going to be using. Take your copper tube, slide it over the top on each side. This can be get a little messy, a little complicated when you're putting it together. Everything kind of falls apart, but you should probably know that already because you've been messing with these things before. Take and put another one on this side. Kind of hold the whole thing together with your hand somehow. We'll set this whole thing down here right now. And then I like to take one of the small washers, set it right on top here. This seems to help with the sliding mechanism a little bit. Gives a little bit of space, makes everything work a little bit better, it seems. Take your top plate, and that sits right on top through those holes. Now you kind of have to jiggle everything a little bit and get the springs to set in the correct holes. Let's see here. Looks like there's a problem on this side here. A little bit. Okay, there's that side. This side looks good. Put that back on there. Set this. And eventually, as we work all this together, it will come together. Side together. Yeah, we can see it's coming together now. It's coming together pretty well. There we go. So you gotta tighten it up, and sometimes you have to loosen it just a hair to get it to move well. There we go, and that side is great. That side's great to begin with. So there you go. You have a sliding damper now. Okay, now here we see it's mounted back on my car, and you can see that it has nice movement that way. It has nice movement that way, and it's complete. Now it's just putting the body on the car and heading to the track to race. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, leave a comment here or on Instagram at theprofessor.m4d, or catch me at Dixon, and I can answer any questions and show you how this works in person. Thanks. Bye.